It's ticklish business any way you look at it. Come on, we'll stick together.
It's Ticklish Business, the podcast devoted to honoring and deconstructing the world of classic cinema. I'm Kristen Lopez.
I'm Samantha Owens. I'm Kimberly Pierce.
And we are joined by a Hollywood legend, in my opinion. I think most of everybody's opinion here. The fantabulous Ruta Lee. Ruta, how are you?
I am exceedingly well and so happy that we're finally coming up for air a little bit with this whole COVID crap. That's all I can call it. And hope that you are all as well and as happy as I am. I'm of course a very happy camper because for the first time in my life I've added another dimension to my life and personality. Not only am I an entertainer and actress, singer, dancer, philanthropist, but I'm now an author.
Yes.
And wow, let me tell you, I admire anybody who can sit their fanny down and write a book because I think it is a very, very difficult procedure, and you have to have the patience of Job to get through the process. But now that I've done it, I'm very, very happy, and I'm already thinking in terms of another book because there's so much I left out of this one.
Yes, your memoir, which is coming out, is appropriately enough called Consider Your Ass Kissed, which is amazing. Probably my favorite title of any book that I've ever read.
Kristen and Samantha and Kimberly, thank you so much for saying that. I know that some people might get just a little bit shocked. Victorian ears sometimes go, oh, what do they mean? And of course, I always say, well, if you're going to be upset about it, because I mean it from the bottom of my heart, I mean it with full gratitude and full love to people who have cared to either turn the set on because I'm on or come to the theater to see me or support my charity, buy my book, whatever the case may be. All I can do is, my greatest compliment is to say, consider your ass kissed. And if anybody's going to upset about that, just remember that Jesus rode into Jerusalem on his ass. Well, I can kiss that ass.
Why did you think now was a good time to write your memoirs and tell all these amazing stories?
Well, I've only been talking about it for about 10 years, I've heard from people all my life that I have visited with or done interviews with or gone on television shows with, that I have such interesting kind of fun stories to tell about people, and we all love to gossip a tiny bit, and that I should be sharing them. And I thought, yeah, that's true, but I just never had the, perseverance to sit down and actually do it. A friend, a good PR friend of mine in Dallas, Texas, and Fort Worth, where I played for 40 years. You come in all the time and you do this, and I hear these stories. Come on, let's sit down. I'm going to come out to LA with my tape recorder, and we're going to tape record everything that you have to say. Well, of course, over the weekend, I had all kinds of stories and crap. But let's face it, he also recorded and transcribed every phone call that came, every bark that the dogs made, every, oh God, excuse me, I have to go pee now, everything got recorded. So all that had to be edited out. So you can imagine what the book would have been if all that had been put in. But it's really a strange feeling, ladies, to sit and go back through your life. And there are so many things. And of course, when you're talking about one, it reminds you of another, which reminds you of another. And then in reading the book the last time I looked at it in editing, I just said, oh my God, I didn't talk about this adventure. I didn't talk about Russia over there. I didn't talk about the Canadian thing. All these things that there's still left to talk about. But the most important thing that I have really to do more on is there's one chapter that's dedicated to my beautiful little grandmother that spent a lot of time in Siberia. She had been deported with her husband to Siberia. His legs were frozen on the cattle car that they were being deported on a 6-week trek. When they took his boots off at a station, the flesh came off with it. Gangrene had set in. And there's so much to that story of the terrors and the panic and I'm not talking about the great intelligentsia or cognoscenti of Lithuania where they were. These are little tiny farm folk, if they had a pig and a cow, they were wealthy. And that's what got deported to Siberia. And I have so much to say on that subject. And of course, the crazy adventure of my calling Khrushchev and having in a drunken stupor, because the more wine they poured, my friends, the more obvious it became that I had to do something quite dramatic after 12 years of trying to do the legal thing of trying to get my grandmother out of the Soviet Union. It's a big adventurous story, and I got her out. And ladies, when she got here, finally, after this adventure, and they didn't have jetways that you had to step down the stairs to the tarmac to walk into the building. That little 95-year-old lady dropped to her knees on the tarmac and kissed the ground of America and said, "Hello, America. Ačiū Dieve," which in Lithuanian is "thank you, God." And I think about how so many of our young generation, the last two generations really, take for granted the liberties that we have in the United States. Take for granted everything that's given them that is not available in all other countries of the world. And I just feel like it is incumbent upon me to pass what little information I have that might hit someone between the ears and say, "Oh God, there's some truth here that I wasn't aware of." So while I don't mean to teach, I kind of feel that maybe some of my experiences might hit someone's heart and home, and I feel like I have to do that. So that's going to be the next book in another 10 years.
That sounds amazing. That was one of my favorite chapters to read, is about you and your grandmother. I loved hearing her appearance on Johnny Carson with you. He was keeping tabs on the whole journey of you getting her to America. And honestly, you going on after just hearing that she had passed was so brave of you, too.
That was a very interesting thing. There's something in my nature that I guess God has taught me down the long line, that death is something to be expected if you're alive. So maybe you don't want it in your youth, etc., but as you get older, it will happen. And I don't go into a spate of tears every time somebody close to me goes to meet their maker. I just sort of smile at the fact that I had time with that person. I had the experiences with that person. And I'm grateful, and so gratitude is a very important thing in my life, and I think that's why the title of the book, Consider Your Ass Kissed, because it's the most humorous and sweetest and yet the most sincere way of saying thank you.
It seems serendipitous that you were set to appear on Johnny Carson that night, of all things.
Isn't that amazing? Well, everything in my life seems serendipitous. Now, maybe it comes back with a lot of prayer. Serendipity might have something to do with getting on your knees and saying please and thank you, but so many happy things came my way because of pure luck. I mean, stop and think about that I write about in the book, my so-called unusual screen test by a wonderful producer to get my movie Witness for the Prosecution. And then think about how Frank Sinatra ran it at home and said, "Hey, why don't we use her?" That's serendipitous too,
Absolutely.
How I became his leading lady. So my whole life is just filled with wonderful things that have happened out of the clear blue.
Yeah, there were so many amazing stories. I mean, I feel like you worked with all of my favorite people. The Rat Pack stories are particularly my favorite. I love the part where you talk about losing your ring and how they gave it to you and you thought you were going to be pranked instead.
Yes. The boys, they were grown up. They were adult children is what they were on the set most of the time. I'm not saying that the guys didn't know how to work hard. They did. They certainly did. But they knew how to have fun too, and every moment that was loose was spent with jokes and fun and pranks, and wow, I had such a good time. And of course, I owe a great deal to Frank Sinatra. He colored my life in the most wonderful ways.
He really seems to be there at every step of the way.
Yeah, a lot. And he was quick to do good. He was very quick to anger when pushed. I really never saw him angry, other than the thing I write about. But I saw him get angry if he was lifting spaghetti to his mouth and somebody, a fan or a friend, came and put his arm down and said, "Frank, can I have a picture?" or something. That would irritate the hell out of him. But then it would irritate the hell out of anybody, if somebody overstepped their bound. That's the only time I saw him really get pissed off about anything, was when he was sitting with people and someone would come and, other than just say, "Gee, it's lovely to meet you," blah, blah, blah. I couldn't blame him for getting upset about those things. And then he would be rude, and then after he was rude, he'd sort of feel bad that he had been rude.
The impression that I always got from all of the collective stories that I've heard is that if you were his friend, he was the nicest person in the world, but if you weren't his friend, you were nothing to him.
You wouldn't want to be his enemy, let's just put it that way. I'm not sure. I mean, I experienced it to some degree, which I write about in the book, where he got very angry with me for absolutely no reason that I was responsible for. Let's put it that way. And I suffered. I don't like anybody being distressed with me in any way, and I really do suffer terrible pangs of what did I do? How did I do it? How do I make it right? I guess simple apologies are always the best. Whether it's your fault or not, apologize for it.
I did want to throw out, your first feature film debut, at just a young girl, was Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. I mean, what was that like to come on to a major musical with Howard Keel, Jane Powell, Stanley Donen directing, all these big stars? You have to dance. I mean, what was that like to be thrust into the studio system with that feature?
Well, I was really too young and too stupid to realize how very blessed I was. And it was my first movie. I had done some television, not much, but it was my first movie. And these were the days when I was still dancing a lot. In fact, I was up at a dance symposium in Idlewild. I don't know if any of you girls have ever been up to Isomata. USC.
I have. I'm actually sort of from there.
Oh,
it was so great to read about it.
That the USC has a great arts foundation. It's the Idlewild School of Music and Fine Arts, and it's just a stupendous summer. They were going to do winter, but it never happened. But a great summer place to go to dance, take dance classes up in 6,000-7,000 feet of altitude. That's kind of tough when you learn to do up there. You have to breathe really hard to be able to perform and do. But great music and everything. And I had been up there with my high school dance teacher, invited me to come up with her and take some classes. And it was one of the best experiences I ever had. And while I was there, I got a call from my agent to get my fanny off the hill and come down to Hollywood, because he had an audition for me for a picture that at the time was called Sobbin, Sobbin, which is a takeoff of the Sabine women, the Roman soldiers grabbing all those cute girls that you see the paintings of. And anyway, and they're all naked. I just love those. They grab naked women. Anyway, I came down, and my mother went with me, of course. She went into the church across the street from Metro, where I went into the casting office, and she lit candles and prayed, and I went in and did my dance audition, and hey, I got the job. And I don't quite know how or why, because every time I would now be working with our choreographer, brilliant, and I'd be in the class, the warm-up class for rehearsals, and we had like about at least 10 weeks of rehearsals on the dance numbers for Seven Brides. And I'd be in the bar, as we call it in English, in French, B-A-R-R-E, not B-A-R drinking. And you'd be doing the ballet exercises, and stretching and doing and turning. And I would look around the room and say, oh my God, these are some of the best dancers in America. We had the premier dancer from the ballet, Jacques D'Amboise. God, Matt Maddox, the one that I was paired with, and I had just seen, not just seen, but maybe 6 months earlier had seen him in Carnival in Flanders on stage, and he did, oh God, he was so magnificent. And I wondered, how did I get so blessed? What am I doing here? I can't keep up with these people. They are really brilliant dancers, and I'm just a beginner. Wow. So I just thank God every day, and that I was so lucky, and frankly, I didn't really recognize how lucky I was. But when you're young, you jump in and you do things, and it's like jumping in the water to swim. You just do it. And
absolutely.
I learned a lot, and I think I might mention this in the book. I learned a lot on Seven Brides. I don't care what you're into. You don't have to be the ace, the best in your field to be doing it. You just have to believe that you can sell that you are. And your smile and your attitude paints a much bigger picture than delicate little footsteps. And I sort of learned a lot, and it carried me through all of life. You don't have to be the best singer. You don't have to be the best dancer. Oh, you could try to be. But you don't have to be the absolute top-notch best in the world in order to sell a number or sell a song. If you do it with your whole heart and know that an audience will love you if you give them your heart, it works.
Right. I was very curious if there was anyone on that set that you became particularly close with, because it's such a big cast. Was it sort of a whole group thing that you'd all go to lunch, or did you find one or two close friends during the set?
Mostly we all went to lunch together. Somehow the girls sort of clung together more than the boys, I think.
That makes sense.
But I mean, we all became good friends. Julie Newmar is still a very good friend to this day. And last year, when just before COVID, I had been in New York, and Norma Doggett, the green dress, the way I describe everybody by what color they wore. Norma Doggett had been a stage dancer, and she did a lot of Broadway shows as a dancer. And she was wonderful, and I saw her in New York. We had lunch together, and she had come in from Long Island, wherever the hell she lives, and it was such fun to relive a lot of that. The girls were really great fun. The only one I never really kept up with was Nancy Kilgus, the cute little blonde girl in the pink dress. But I kept up with a lot of them. And a lot of them, died on me on the young side, I don't know why, but hell, I believe in what the Bible promises me, which is 120 years, and I want every single one of them being able to walk and talk at the same time and chew gum.
Yes.
I know each of us have favorites from that film. In addition to you, of course, I'm a big Russ Tamblyn fan, and I know Kristen's a big Tommy Rawl fan.
I know.
And Tommy just died, you know.
He did. It broke my heart.
Yeah, he just recently. And his wife has now gone to live in, I can't remember if it's one of the Carolinas or if it's somewhere kind of south.
Wow,
and she's invited me to come and visit, and they're working on a house. Her son is there with her, so that works pretty well. And so I sort of still stay in touch. And unfortunately, most everybody else is gone, When I stop and think of our leading man, what a lovely man he was. And I went to, the last time I saw him, I think, was when he was getting his star on the Walk of Fame in Palm Springs, and I went to say funny, slightly rude little things about him. Howard Keel, of course, I'm talking about.
Right.
And of course, beautiful Jane Powell is still alive.
She is.
She's off in New York, and she's very special. And there's a girl that had it all and was a doll to go with it. It's really nice when, of course, I have very, very few bad things to say about anybody in our business. I think that we are an amazing bunch of people that give charitably away the only thing that we have, which is our time and talent, to raise funds for everybody. And boy, I've been supported in Thalians for so many years. And I've mentioned Thalians. I'd like your audience, your listeners, to know about the Thalians.
Yes, please.
Of course, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the Thalians.
Well,
it's a wonderful project.
They were a group of young people in Hollywood who got tired of being called hard-drinking, pot-smoking, sex-minded asses that had nothing to contribute. Said, we all get together and sing and dance and, sing around the piano and have a few drinks and laughs. Why don't we put something together and sell tickets and raise money for a charity? And I write about this in the book. They sent out Jane Mansfield and Mamie Van Doren. Now, you know what bra sizes they have. And they were sent out to find a good charity. And they came back to the next meeting and said, well, all the good diseases have been taken. So they found that there was a doctor that was dealing with emotionally disturbed children, that he described an emotionally disturbed child as an apple that was rotting in a barrel, and it can affect the entire barrel if you don't take it out and cut out what's bad in it. And he was dealing with emotionally disturbed children, so that's what the Thalians did. And then 18 years later, the Thalians built the first building that went in at the Cedars-Sinai complex in Los Angeles. I'm so proud of the fact that we were able to do that, this group of young actors and the people who believed in the cause of mental health and helped us along the way. And now our clinic, which was the Thalians Community Mental Health Center, dealt with everything from pediatric to geriatric. And wow, in treatment and in research, and we thrived for about 60 years doing huge, fabulous shows where we honored everybody from Busby Berkeley through Frank Sinatra, through Whoopi Goldberg, through Sally Field. Amazing people who not only were sparkling on stage and screen, but were sparkling in their philanthropic deeds as well. And we raised millions and millions and millions of dollars. And then we decided to switch our focus and concentrate on a very important need, and that is the need of the returning veterans. Those beautiful young men and women who put their lives on the line to keep America safe, and then they come home and they fall through the cracks.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
They deserve what the best America has to offer, and they fall through the cracks, especially when it comes to mental health. So we teamed up with UCLA and Operation Mend. Operation Mend heals the broken bodies, the shattered limbs of our wonderful returning veterans, and we Thalians try to heal the shattered mind and spirit of our returning veterans, and it's most important. So if your listeners are of a mind to or of a heart to, and let's face it, Americans are the most generous people on the face of this earth, please go to the Thalians, THALIANS.org, and you can read all about us and what we do. And if you contribute 50 cents, $5, $500,000, it will be put to very, very good use, helping those who are there to help us. And I thank you in advance, and consider your ass kissed.
That's so delightful, because it really is a cause that's so overlooked. And especially only now are we really starting to have those discussions about mental health. And it's amazing. You and everyone in that organization were so ahead of your time in putting that as the focus.
Isn't it amazing when you stop and think about it, that the Thalians, and Debbie Reynolds was one of the founding members, and I came in like 5 years or so after it was started, focused on mental health through the whole period, all the years that we were together, and yet her own daughter died with mental health problems, you know? And it seems bizarre, doesn't it, that would happen. And Debbie was one of the best human beings God put on this earth in every way. She was truly a fine and generous human being who would help anybody that needed help, and felt that this was most important. And I was always very proud of the fact that she stressed, and we Thalians shone a Hollywood spotlight, a Klieg light, on that dark abyss, that pit called mental illness. And hopefully that light would bring, mental illness was tucked in a closet and hidden and not talked about. And now we have tried all these 50 years to bring it out into the open, so that, and thank God it is more open now, it is more discussed. And I feel that we Thalians had a lot to do with it, because we made it, we filled lives that were bleak with pain of mental illness with the light of healing, and a little humor and a little music and a little everything, so that some of that pain was alleviated. And I'm so grateful to the people that supported us all through the years.
Right. I couldn't go without talking to you about Debbie Reynolds, because she's one of my absolute favorites.
Yeah.
And it's amazing the work that you two did together.
Well, I always said that we were the mother superiors of the Thalians. Our first president was Hugh O'Brien. Then Margaret came in as Margaret, I did a blank on a name all of a sudden, only one of my best friends. Margaret White, the singer, was the second president. And then Debbie became president. And then she brought in Donald O'Connor as president. And then I became president. Every one of these people served like 1 or 2 years. I became president for about 14 years. And then she said, Ruta, I'm off Broadway now. I'll be back. I'll take the presidency. You go up to chairman of the board, where I stayed for the next 25 or whatever years. And so we were either, and then, she had to go back out on the road, making up for the deficits that every one of her friggin' husbands cost her. And so I was either president or chairman of the board forever, it seems like. And now I'm chairman emeritus, but I'm still very much involved. But of course, we're not doing our big shows now because we can't, thanks to COVID. But we'll be back. We'll be back, and we have to raise funds. So I'm very grateful to anybody that supports us, in spite of the fact that we're not giving them a big dinner show, to pay big bucks for.
Well, I'd be remiss, if I didn't bring up your amazing TV work, because you've worked with pretty much every amazing talent in classic television, whether that's James Garner, who I love, the Lucy Show. My mom is, anytime somebody's been near Lucille Ball, I'm required to automatically ask. I mean, is there a television appearance for you that stands out after all these years that just sticks with you?
Oh, well, Lord, you just mentioned 2 of my favorites. Anytime I could work with Jimmy Garner, it was wonderful.
I'm so jealous.
Because we were, yeah. And had he not been married, I would have jumped on his bone.
I wholeheartedly agree.
But
I think all of us agree.
Being a good Catholic girl, I just wouldn't do that, And of course, when you talk about Lucille Ball, now those were always great experiences. And the loveliest experience about working with Lucy is that she became a very good friend. And I asked her to be one of our honorees at the Thalians, and she agreed. Whenever I asked her to do something, she would do it, which is amazing because, like I said, time was precious to her. Yeah. Time away from being Lucille Ball was very precious to her. But I loved her. God, she was a great dame. And of course, I'm very friendly with her daughter, Little Lou, as I call her, who lives in Palm Springs, not too far away from my Palm Springs house. So we get to see each other every once in a while. And but Lucy, I think, is in everybody's life.
Yeah.
I know that most foreigners who come to the United States will turn on the Lucy show to learn English and some of the idioms, because Lucy was so expressive in what she said and did that I think foreigners can understand that, like a clown working, that was Lucy. And I just love the idea that she has had how many generations of viewers now?
Yeah.
Wow.
And they're gonna do a TV limited miniseries about her life on the show, which I'm not 100% on board about, but it'll be a new generation that'll, if they don't know, they'll know something.
Yes, exactly. Well, she had a stunning life, and she was generous with her time. So I'm very, very grateful. I met her long before I ever worked for her at a racetrack, believe it or not, and it was a stunning experience for me to be with Lucy and Desi, and then later I worked on her shows, and boy, oh boy, did I love that. And then I also had the joy of being the guest star at one of the big events that take place in Jamestown, New York, where people come from all over the world to celebrate Lucy's birthday. And they take over the whole town, and they do parades, and theaters are closed and set up to run Lucy segments of movies, and it was a great experience for me, and I was stunned to see how many people come into Jamestown, New York, and go to her graveside, which is alongside of her mom's, and visit. I think what a lovely way to spend a birthday for Lucy.
It's on my bucket list. I want to do it once travel is a thing again.
Yes, yes. Now, Jamestown, New York is not the easiest place in the world to get to. It's sort of in western New York, and it's not near any big airport. You have to get there and then drive for a couple of hours or whatever it is, but it's worth it.
You write so eloquently about that experience of coming to Hollywood at a young age, and I love your descriptions of going to see movies and the theaters at the time and working at Grauman. What movies were you seeing at that time? Who were those performers who made you want to be a performer? Who was inspiring you?
Well, clearly when I got the job at Grauman's Chinese, which was a big thrill, beautiful, beautiful theater, and historic, my God. Then, of course, the leading ladies, they were running not MGM, but 20th Century Fox films. So the leading ladies were Betty Grable, who became a friend, June Haver, who later became a very good friend, Mitzi Gaynor, Ethel Merman, these gorgeous women, Jean Crane, not musicals, although she did a couple of things, and Marilyn Monroe, who was just beginning her career then. But these were the people that I was seeing on the screen while I was an usherette, and just aching to do what they did and be like them. And Missy Gaynor is a very good friend. God love her, The rest of the ladies are gone, but Mitzi is still very much alive, and still head of the Professional Dancers Society, which does lovely events every year. But we've all come to a standstill because of this damn COVID, and God, I'm anxious to get it over.
What are you most looking forward to?
Well, I haven't stopped seeing my friends. You create a pod of healthy friends that are either inoculated or they're safe, and so I have a group in Palm Springs where I have a house, and I have a a group here in LA. So I have not stopped going. And in Palm Springs, we were very blessed that a lot of restaurants, until the silly governor put a halt to it, were open right on the street, you know, and we're blessed in California with a climate that you can do this year round, which is wonderful. And so I never really stopped. But what I'm missing most is going to the theater and seeing shows. I know that they're starting to open the movies, but it's not going to be the same when you're not packed together. That laughter that is elicited by one big laugh leader in a group, you know, of tightly packed theater audience is so important. And that sigh of sadness, or the tears that come, or the just the applause at the end. I miss that. I miss hearing it as a performer, and I miss giving it as an audience.
I know we're definitely feeling that with the TCM Film Festival not happening again this year. I know Sam and Kim and I, we go every year, and that's the big thing that we've missed during all of this, is getting to enjoy classic films in a theater and nerd out over these things.
I join you too. I've always been invited to their things. In fact, I've done one of their cruises at TCM. In fact, the only reason I have television, I think, is so that I can get TCM.
You and I actually met very briefly on the red carpet at TCM. I think that they did.
Thank you for reminding me, because I was about to say, I always enjoyed the red carpet so much because I got to visit with beautiful and now very young people doing the interviews.
I was one of them.
They don't know poop from Shinola, you know.
Ruta and I talked very briefly one year. I forget what the opening night film was, and it was a great talk. But I think the only thing I remember is that you commented on how pale my arms were and how it was great that I did not have a tan. And I was like, okay, I can work with that.
Well, I adore the sun, and I must say I am paying the price for it now, because I am growing things like barnacles all over me, and it's thanks to the sun, you know, because I spent my life in the sun, never my face, because I thought I didn't photograph as well dark as I did light, so I wore big hats. In fact, my readers, my book readers, will enjoy the story about Eva Gabor and getting tan, naked. Is that a teaser, or is that a teaser?
That is perfect. Sam, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, as far as the TCM festival goes, it's kind of amazing because, you know, you have to make such difficult decisions as far as which movies you can see. And I remember crying in Mel's restaurant because I had to miss your introduction of Witness for the Prosecution, and it's so amazing that I'm able to talk to you now. And I have to ask you about Witness for the Prosecution because Tyrone Power is my all-time favorite actor.
It is.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. And you know, he died not too long after doing Witness for the Prosecution.
It was really his last film.
Yes, it was his last complete film. That's for sure. Mm-hmm. And he was a joy to work with. In fact, I write a little bit about this in the book.
Right.
He discovered, after I spent a little time with him, and he was so pleasant and sweet and nice to be with, and I was just dazzled by these great film personalities, now television personalities, thanks to the movies being screened. And they were so deliciously simple and easy and warm, you know, just great, accommodating. And he found out, he being Tyrone, that I had never seen one of his first great films that made him a big star, which was Blood and Sand with Rita Hayworth. And so he arranged a screening for me at Rogers & Cowan in the private screening room. And I sat there with him as my date and watched him on the screen with my heart pounding, going pitter patter, pitter patter. And the nice part is that Rita Hayworth, who also became a Thalians honoree, was once the owner of the house that I live in Laurel Canyon in Hollywood.
Really?
And she lived here with Orson Welles. And I go up and down the halls, rubbing my ass on the walls, assuming the glamour will come off on it.
I'm sure it does. It definitely does.
Isn't it a small, wonderful world we live in, especially in Hollywood?
It really is. I live down the street actually from one of Frank Sinatra's houses. So I walk by it when I take walks in my neighborhood in Toluca Lake, and I get to see it, and it's a beautiful house. So it's always amazing that little piece of Hollywood history is there for me to stare at.
Oh, that's nice. Well, now, where do you live?
I'm in Toluca Lake.
Oh, you're in Toluca Lake.
Yeah,
okay.
So across from Bob Hope's house, it's like right behind me.
I was going to say Bob Hope. Well, Bob's daughter is a friend, and so I've spent time there. And she was very, very sweet, and gave me a beautiful Italian set in velvet medallion of Madonna and Child. That was her mother's favorite thing, and it sits in my living room. So if you ever come to visit, I'll point that out to you.
Oh my gosh, I would. Anytime you say the word, I could totally come
visit. you have my number, and I invite you to come up and have a glass of wine or 10, and look at some of my memorabilia.
Yes. Well, the last question I wanted to throw out, because I don't want to take up your entire day, but I have to talk about, you did an episode of The Twilight Zone, A Short Drink from a Certain Fountain, and I have
that was probably one of my favorite film roles.
Really?
Because, little trashy tarts are so much more fun to play than good girls, Oh, I love the way you said,
What? I'm vaguely obsessed.
I was just watching.
Oh, go on.
I was just watching Marjorie Morningstar yesterday, and your part in that clicked exactly with how you said that.
But you know how fun it is to be able to say that I slept in Gene Kelly's bed. And I write in the book that he used to take my house in Palm Springs a little before I got this one. And so he slept in that bed too. So I slept in Gene Kelly's bed twice. On film, anyway.
I was revisiting some Stump the Stars yesterday and your appearance on Fractured Flickers. I was wondering if you could shine a light at all to Hans Conried. He's such a fascinating performer, and there's so little written about him.
And what a fabulous guy to work with, because he was filled with humor and loved to laugh his way through whatever we were doing as well. And Stump the Stars was blessed in that everybody that we ever worked with was just wild and wonderful,
It seems like an incredible show. It's just so intense and so fun.
Such fun, and I think that Lucy fell in love with Stump the Stars, and she always loved charades, and we used to go over to her house to play. By Lucy, I mean the Lucy. And loved it so much. But then I write about all this in the book, which I hope everybody will run out and buy at least 400 copies of, so that you make me look good to the printers. And it's available, by the way, girls. May I?
Yes.
You can pre-order. It's available on Amazon.com, of course, and it's also available in all the Barnes and Noble stores. And I like for everybody to go to their local bookstore. And those of us in Hollywood who are a little bit of showbiz trash certainly know Larry Edmonds.
Yes.
Because they have all the memorabilia and all the movie star books. And I will be doing a signing, hopefully there, if not physically, then virtually somehow. But Larry Edmonds' bookstore in Hollywood is very special.
Yeah, I just
and
put
you
in.
can find Larry's books online as well.
Yes, I just might have put in my pre-orders for some signed stuff like last week and spent my money.
I hope so. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your audience with me.
Oh my gosh, no,
to be with you. We really should be doing this with, I was going to say tea, but no, a glass of wine makes more sense.
Yes, and I mean, we only scratched the surface of Ruta's book. I mean, we didn't talk about, I had Alex Trebek questions. I had a bunch of questions, so.
Oh, Alex, darlings, did the foreword to my book.
Yes.
So you know what kind of a good friend he was, and I saw him shortly before he went to meet God, and we laughed and scratched, and he looked fabulous, which was just amazing. And his both his beautiful wives, first and the last, are my very good friends, and I'm happy to say that.
But yes, please get Ruta's book. Ruta, where are you on social media in case fans want to get in touch with you, learn more about you, all of that?
I just go to rutalee.com. That's my website, and then when it comes to everything else, I don't know my address because I don't write myself. I just enter mail as best I can, and love every single second of it. And the problem is that I lose a week, sometimes answering people. It takes so long because I try to get to everybody. And thank God I have Judy who says, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, or you answer that when this one needs. So Judy Diamond is my assistant, and she helps me out with everything. Thank you, God.
Well, perfect. Well, we are...
Yes. I'm going to call you my trampette.
Yes.
Yes. Well, perfect. Ruta, you have a great rest of your day. We will talk to you soon.
You too. I love you, and I thank you, and may God keep smiling on all of us.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
That's going to close out this edition of Ticklish Business. Send us your thoughts on Ruta Lee, her book, anything you want. You can email them to us at ticklishbiz@gmail.com, or you can tweet them to us at ticklish_biz. As always, you can find me on Twitter at journeys_film. Samantha Ellis, where are you online? What's going on with you?
Well, my blog is at musingsofaClassicFilmatic.com. You can find my Cooking with the Stars posts at classicmoviehub.com, and I'm most frequent on Twitter at classicfilmgeek.
And Kimberly Pierce, what about you?
I'm on Twitter and Letterboxd at kpierce624, and then you can find me most often at the Ticklish Business website.
That's right. Our Ticklish Business website is journeysinclassicfilm.com. We have interviews, reviews, most of those written by Kim, which we thank her, show notes, all of that. Also, visit our Instagram at ticklishbiz. We have all sorts of stuff happening there. We are doing a contest. If we hit 1,000 followers on Facebook or on Twitter or Instagram, we are giving away 2 rare out-of-print Fox box sets, as well as a set of Kate Gabrielle's exclusive TCM Film Festival host pins. We'll be adding to that. So the longer this goes on, the longer it takes us to get to 1,000, there could be a big box of stuff being sent to somebody. We'll keep adding to it. We also have a contest going on right now, giving away a box set of Lois Weber's films newly released from Kino. All you have to do to enter there is to follow us on Twitter and retweet our tweet with your favorite female filmmaker. And that's for U.S. residents only. Unfortunately, international shipping remains too expensive. But that'll close us out. We will be back next time.